Are you ready to perform at your highest potential? Thank you for joining this GP Strategies webinar, where we'll explore best practices and innovative insights to help you and your organization improve performance.
To kick things off, as people are coming in, you'll see the slide being shared right now. If people can put in chat the last thing they used AI to do today, or if you didn't use it today, the most recent thing you've used AI to help you with. We'd love to see what pops up.
Equally, I'd love to know if anyone has never used AI, because that would be very fascinating and how you found yourself on this webinar.
Yeah, and while you're at it, let us know where you're saying hi from and share your location with us. We want to see where everyone's connecting from and how wide our community reaches. So please pop those things in the chat. Yeah, feel free to participate. We're going to give it one more minute, just for a few more people to join, and then we'll get started. Oh,
that's fun.
Yeah, that's a fun one. Oh, I love that. Very creative.
See now I want to know so many more things. What tools did you use? What yeah. What movie was it?
How did it turn out?
Nice.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. We hope because more and more people are using it for personal use. Like, what I've got a cookie party coming up, and you better believe I have to look up some recipes based on what ChatGPT says.
Yeah.
Oh, I use it all the time. And even to consolidate, like to not make as much of a mess, I'm like, hey, what recipe can I make exclusively in a blender? Where I just put all the ingredients in. It turns out it's rather good at that if you didn't want to make a mess of the things you were making in your kitchen.
Okay.
I wish I could react to these. These are great.
Yeah.
This is awesome. All right. This is fun.
The
Keep them
uses,
coming.
yeah, the uses are far and wide. But while you guys keep them coming and keep commenting what the last thing you used AI for was, I'm gonna welcome you all. So hi everyone and welcome. We're really glad you could join us today. We're gonna get started in a moment, but before we do have some housekeeping items we want to tell you. So feel free to drop your thoughts in the chat while I'm saying all of this. And yeah, we're going to revisit this conversation about the uses of AI later in the session. I'm Juana Delgado, from GP Strategies marketing team, and I will be your host for today. And today I'll guide you through the topic, and I'm going to introduce our speakers, which you've already seen here. But first, I want to remind everyone that today's session will be recorded, and you'll get the link in your email within 24 hours. And even though all of you are on mute as participants, we do want this to be an interactive session. So feel free to use the chat to share your thoughts. Use the Q&A feature if you can't access the chat. Pop in your questions in there, and we'll answer them either during the presentation or we'll save them for the end. And yeah, if no one else wants to put anything in the chat, then let's just get started. If you've joined us here before, we're glad to have you back. If this is your first session with us, then a big welcome. Welcome to GP Strategies webinars. And today we are going to be talking with the VP of Technology, Jeff Fissel, and Director of Technology, Brett Elam. We're going to walk you through how AIQ is moving beyond the proof of concept to deliver real value across entire organizations. So they've been working directly with these teams in tech, automotive, and other global enterprises, and they're going to show you what using AIQ and AI in practice looks like. So they'll break down how organizations are using it to strengthen learning, to streamline everyday work, and to support performance at scale. So you'll also get a look at what's ahead in AIQ in 2026. My gosh. And then whether you're preparing, for your first deployment of this or you're fine-tuning an existing one, this session is going to give you really great insights into how you can use this, with confidence. So Let's jump right in. Welcome, Jeff and Brett, and thank you both for being here.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for being here. Just quick thing, you're able to see my slides, right? We're off to a good start with the technology. You see
Yes.
the last thing we used? All right, and then I'm going to click into the next one here. All right, we're off to a good start.
You're good
As
to
we
go.
mentioned, we'd love to keep this interactive, so please use the chat, ask questions, stop us, yell at us, do whatever you want to do. This will be a lot of fun here in the next 45 minutes, but it's way more fun when we're interactive and doing this together. And Brett, thank you for being here with me today to do this. I think we're going to have a good amount of fun diving into this. And like anyone that's been to any webinars we've done, we're going to do a lot of live demoing and show things and hope that it all works, which is always fun to do on a live presentation like this. So without further ado, we'll sort of jump in. I wanted to do a little bit of context setting of things we hear quite often. So it's all, I'm sure everyone on this call is hearing that I need to do more with less. How do I use AI to drive efficiency, save money, do more, all of those kind of things. But one thing we've learned when we start to move past, I'll say just the proof of concepts of using chat clients like ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, tools like that, is we realized there was kind of three big issues that we wanted to kind of deal with and help organizations deal with. The first was too much data and not enough context. So Microsoft and Google have done amazing things where you can point a chatbot, use a RAG-like feature to grab stuff from your own organizational database and use it to do magic AI things with. But it turns out if it doesn't have the right context around that, it doesn't return great results. Sometimes boring or sometimes even wrong. I haven't met a single organization yet that's like, hey, I've got a super well-organized SharePoint site. So please point it at SharePoint and let it figure everything out. So how do you give the tools the right context, what they need to know to do that job well? Kind of tied into that is a lack of instructional design subject matter expertise, like how to write good assessment questions, how to write learning objectives, how to do things with that learning bias that everyone here on this call knows, and how do you start to embed that wisdom into the tools that we're using and be aware of when it's using what. And all that kind of comes to solving the problem of mediocre outputs. We sort of joke once you get past the party trick of watching AI write words and you read the words and you're sad that they're not great words. It's not that interesting. How do you kind of move past that? So, Brett, anything you wanted to add on this slide before we kind of kick into a little bit of how we're solving this?
No, I think you did a fine job. The too much data, not enough context is the big one that's definitely worth focusing on a lot as you guys are kind of individually looking at where and how AI fits into your workflows, right? So, there's tons of data out there. There's spreadsheets left, right, center, all over the place. Is AI understanding that data before trying to make all these assertions about, how busy you are and how much revenue is coming in and how accurate the numbers are in the LLM. So that is a big piece of it. And what you do around getting AI to understand the content and adding that as appropriate context is a big step that I think is often underestimated as far as the effort goes.
Yeah, it's getting the data in the right shape. And we have found with all of the customers we're working with, that is absolutely the most important part of it. Everyone says it, but it's not until you do it that you have a full appreciation for the importance of getting that set up right. So I'm going to pull up this eye chart here on purpose to kind of walk you through a little bit of the flow of how we're working inside of the technology that we've built to sort of address some of those issues we talked about before. So it starts at the top of the funnel here, is starting to connect to some of those places where knowledge lives, whether that's ticketing systems, SharePoint sites, LMS platforms. We've built a suite of agents that allow us to kind of ingest and deconstruct and understand that learning content and kind of break it down to its core components. This becomes really important. I'll share a really tactical example here. If you point an LLM at a piece of learning that has an assessment in it, the majority of an assessment is wrong answers, distractors. generically, the LLM won't know that, which means that you could be polluting your data set with wrong answers if you're not aware of how you're processing it. So being aware of the context of what you're looking at becomes really important. So you can start to build these trusted knowledge bases of content. Then, based on that, you can start to apply a suite of agents with expertise built in to start to help you shape that content into the different formats and modalities that you might want to have. And then you might integrate that with the different publishing platforms that are out there. And I want to call one important point out here is all the tools on the bottom of that this chart here have a mechanism for you to upload a PDF or file to it, use AI to create something in those tools. But very rarely do those tools actually let you see what's happening inside that, how they're parsing that file, what they're doing with it. And in most cases, if you think about it, you're not going to want to send all your files, all that data to all of those tools. So what we're setting out to solve here is to provide those tools all the context and data they need to effectively do their job. So when we send a script request to Colossian, we give it the context of that video. So when it starts to generate the stuff that's there, it can create a higher quality video experience. Same with Articulate or Goma, or even Copilot or coaching platforms of how do you start to give those tools the context they need to be successful with well-written, well-formatted, and well-structured content. So the last slide I promise is when we reflected on this, Brett and I did this recently, and this is a document that GP we can share with you that over the last year, we've created over 60 plus agents where we've embedded a lot of that expertise across GP in there, from how to understand and extract skills from learning content to how to generate assessment questions and scenarios to creating standard operating procedures or on the job checklists and a lot of the things in between. I'm not going to read all these to you, and we're happy to send this document to you afterwards. There's a whole huge detail that walks through all of this that anyone's welcome to have. So what we wanted to kind of show you here was a live demo of starting to apply these. And I'm going to start by showing some of that within the Content AIQ tool. And then I'm going to hand it to Brett to show some of the work that we've been able to do around AIQ tool in using the capabilities that exist within it. So I don't see any questions yet, but please feel free to pop them in as we do that. I'm going to stop sharing the slides and I'm going to move over to my screen share. And Brett, feel free to jump in at any point as well, obviously.
Yeah.
You can be my tech check here. Am I sharing the right screen? Do you see Content AIQ popping up here?
There it is. Yep, I see it.
Ooh. All right. Let me make sure I pull chat up. All right. We're getting some more cover letters, all kinds of good stuff. So the Content AIQ tool, I'll call out right now, first off, is all built 100% in the Azure Microsoft tech stack. It doesn't have to be deployed there, but we have the mechanism to deploy it there. So what that means is that you can run this in your own Microsoft environment or in our trusted environment as well, so that it you have the trust, security, governance, all the things you need around it. I'm showing you a demo example right here. So in the tool itself, the first thing you start to do is give it access to that content. You have a couple mechanisms of doing that. You can connect it in via API or Power Automate connector to push and pull data into it. You can drag and drop files in here, or you can just say, hey, I want you to go to this URL, and every week I want you to get the latest information that's here. This is great for factual information, regulations, things that are publicly accessible that you want to make sure you're always working off the latest version of it. That's a big issue we see with AI as well, is a lot of times in these file share systems, you store old versions of stuff. And if you look into the sources of what AI uses, sometimes it might grab something from a 5-year-old document if you're not careful and use that in the generation of it. So this constantly having the updating mechanism of content matters a lot. One of the other things we do in here is I'll show an example of one is we have cracked the code of deconstructing e-learning packages. So zip files, SCORM files, things like that. So you can load those directly into the tool and it will start to generate metadata, understand what's going on in that, from summaries to topics and keywords and learning objectives. And I want to show you just a different kind of example of that. And because Brett will Brett will laugh at me. What this all generates is in JSON format, but looking at JSON isn't that fun. So we've asked AI to build out a nice, pretty HTML document here. But when I start to look at this piece of e-learning here, I can start to see kind of metadata about that I'm generating. Descriptions, target audience, prerequisites, language, duration, I can start to understand kind of a fitness report of this. Like, what's the depth of it? Is this a advanced course, an intermediate, detail? Like all that sort of stuff really matters. A grade around the complexity of it, the ideal placement. So we're starting to analyze that content. We're going to generate standardized learning objectives in a terminal enabling format using Bloom's taxonomy. So again, we're starting to get an understanding of what's going on inside that content. Um, we're building a detailed outline of what's covered in there, page by page. What are the core topics that are covered, or timestamp by timestamp if you're looking at video. So getting a good understanding of what's going on inside that piece of content. Sorry, Brett, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the reasons why we generate this metadata first. So we'll parse the content, we'll understand it, do our best, whatever. But then what we're trying to do is extract all the metadata, label the data itself, because we don't ever know what the use case is of any given client or customer for how they want to use this information, right? So one of the things you'll notice is that learner fitness report is an example of, well, maybe they want to start creating a curriculum, but they want to know that it's going to fit or match the level of depth required to make it, to put the information in order. It might be they want to use the FAQs section in there, which if he goes down, you'll see it. But there's an FAQ generation step that goes in and actually synthetically generates questions and answers found in that content for use in other subject matter expert agent systems, right? You might have your own internal one that you guys use, but you need good data, and you don't always want to go directly to the content, which is big, and you guys have a lot of it. And you might want a kind of a FAQ repository for being able to quickly pull, find, and answer those questions. So a lot of use cases, and that's one of the reasons we use this. One of the ways we use this.
And Brett's going to get into this a little deeper more in a second around topics and weighting, because one of the things we realize when you tag content, typically content's just tagged with words, and you don't have a metric of weight or density of how much is actually covered in this. What's the threshold of what it's there? So we introduced kind of a weight metric into that so we can start to understand how much of that content is actually about that specific topic. And you can tag this to existing taxonomies. When you start to get all this metadata, you can then start to use that to evaluate your content against a rubric. So this is an example of a rubric output where we took a series of criterion and metrics and score the content against that for an organization. So you can start to use AI to understand where your content sits today, where it needs to be updated, what covers which parts of it. And this becomes a lot of value out of just better understanding what you have today and what you're going to work with. And this becomes key to making sure it's the whole garbage in, garbage out in AI analogy of making sure you only give it the good stuff that's relevant to what's there. So when I go back into the tool and I have my kind of file library, files are great, but how do I start to group stuff together? And that's where we introduce this concept of knowledge bases. So I stick with this leadership topic of accountability here. You'll see what I did is I created a knowledge base on accountability. And what I did was I took all the documents that were related to delivering an ILT and VILT experience. So a lot of overlap, but some differences there. And I gave it the context of that. I could add new files if I wanted to. But then what the tool does is it will automatically understand what are the core topics that are covered across that, use that topic detection agent that we talked about. A human can review these, edit, remove, or change them. And then it uses a series of fact detection agents to actually pull the information out of that. And we allow this to be human editable and updatable. So if it grabs something and infers the wrong information, you can correct that and get it right before you start using it to create new derivative work downstream. Again, this becomes really important when you're dealing with product specs or facts or things like that, where the numbers matter. And you want to make sure it gets that perfectly right every time, is understanding how it inferred that content and being able to correct that and build out these knowledge bases of grounded information. So you'll see a whole different example here, from leadership content to content on oils and lubricants. And the idea here is that these are separate databases of knowledge, and I can start to use them to create new. So if I go to the concept of workspaces here, workspaces are where we allow you to start to ground the knowledge and give specific context. So I'll stick with this leadership theme here. And every workspace has a set of properties where I can, again, ground it on a knowledge base or several knowledge bases and specific versions of that on specific files here. And what this means is if I try to make the workspace create a course for me on world history, it's going to come back and say, I don't know anything about world history. All I know is about accountability, and it's going to stay in its lane and be grounded on that. It actually turns out it's really hard to make an AI tool say, I don't know. We're very proud of the work we've put into making it do that and being able to make sure it's focused on what it does. We also give you the mechanism to set learning objectives for this workspace, so you don't have to continue to re-enter them, and to also upload or set a tone and style doc, do's and don'ts, personality, characteristics, all those things that are really important to creating consistent, high quality content at scale. So now, whether I'm in the tool and I'm just chatting with it and asking it to helping me build scenarios or nudges or things like that, it's going to have all that extra context. And I'll call out an example here, and I can say this because I'm the person that wrote this prompt, but this is a rather unsophisticated prompt. If I were to post this in ChatGPT or Gemini, it would give me a bunch of really generic, fluffy, boring stuff. What it actually generated here is a bunch of meaningful information because it had all that context built around it. It knew where it was, it knew those objectives, and it knew what it was grounded on, and the instructional design expertise that is built into the system prompts of these tools. So why having a purpose-built tool matters. Then you get into the concept of output agents. So in AIQ, we have a whole series of pre-built ones, but you also have the ability to create your own custom ones as well, where I can start to create new content. So let's say I want to create a new video script here, and I want to create a new video for, I'll say accountability basics for new starters in the US. And basically what the tool will do is, based off of that context and inference, it will start to infer what might be relevant for a video based on the basics for new starters in the US. And what it will come back with here is suggestions on what could be in that video. So I'll kind of expand this here where it's saying, hey, based on this, here's the audience, here's some key concepts, here's what I think it could be. This looks really good. It's, hey, 15 minutes. I could say, hey, change this, do that. But I'll say, actually, this looks great. Go ahead and this will trigger the agentic workflow of the suite of agents that create this to start to generate that content over here to the right. And this becomes my chat with experience. So every time I want to change things, I can continue to chat with it, and it will continue to create and maintain or update that content alongside. So this isn't instant. It takes a minute or two to do it. So I'm going to click out and kind of show you an example of a couple other ones that have been created here. So I'll show you this video script here. So you get the idea of, I want to make this a little smaller. There it is. So you can start to see where, again, it provides the scenes, the visual cues, the speakers, like all of that sort of stuff. And then the tool has those integrations built, so I could easily send this to Colossian or Synthesia, or maybe I want to download it to Markdown and put it in a different tool that I want to use, or PowerPoint or Word. So we give you the mechanism to pull out this well-structured content and publish it into the different tools that you might need to use it with.
And that's a
I'll
good point
go
too,
ahead.
Jeff. Just to call out, right? Like we're talking a lot about AIQ in this for obvious reasons. However, AIQ is not the right answer. Use this AI and only this AI, right? There are tons and tons. Like we want to be agnostic to the final last mile tools that you guys are already using, but we do want to make sure that the content generated is well grounded, informed with good and best practices for learning and development. And so that's when and why you might use this, and then take this output, put it into, your third party, your external instructional design tools, or even things like Copilot for the things that they're good at too.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, you start to see examples of these outputs. And again, you can create custom outputs as well. So you can save the way you want this to work and then continue to push out new content at scale. And the fun part about this is once you start to build the trust in how these work, you can start to automate this process through from creating videos dynamically to generating metadata and understanding and podcasts and all of those sort of things. So this heads down that path towards even more autonomy that's there. And one thing I will call out, since this is a GP webinar, is if you're interested in seeing the metadata or any of that content on any of your own files, we have a mechanism where you can upload that and we can process that and generate a similar report for you. So Brett, in the spirit of time, I do want to pass it over to you to show a couple more kind of tactical examples of how you've used AIQ, but also generated reports outside of that for some of our customers. So I'll stop sharing here and pass the ball over to you.
Perfect. Okay. All right. First, can you guys see a bunch of skills or skill taxonomy?
Nothing yet.
You can't, can you? There we go. That extra
Now
button
I
you
can
gotta
see
click. There we go. There we go. Cool. So the first example is one that we used on a client that essentially did not have a great or strong skill taxonomy. They're a large organization. They have done lots of mergers and acquisitions and all kinds of things, but they didn't have a unified one. So we took a lot of their content, put it in, and basically went through a skill extraction process. So it found, in the neighborhood of, looking at 1,200 jobs, kind of generated, 2,300, skills. You can see here's some of the skills here. You can dive into the type of skill, and maybe you want to look at, like this particular skill here, and that'll jump you to like what that skill is, how many other jobs have that exact one, the definition of it, and who had that one. And then you've got the ability to like view some high level competencies, right, of that particular skill, right? So this will jump you into like, the different traits and behaviors you might want to have in order to exhibit that skill. So this is a great kind of a great one nice view of being able to do that. And also this information can get used to analyze your existing content against a set of skills or content. So that's one example on how we've leveraged a lot of that metadata. Go ahead.
And Brett, the important part here is if you just ask AI with a list of words for skills to tag it to, it will do that, but your quality is going to be subpar. Building this synthetic data around that to enrich the skill taxonomy allowed the tagging to be much more useful and accurate, would you say, right?
Yeah, exactly. And their AI does struggle with this sort of needle in a haystack problem, right? Like, let's say you do have a skill taxonomy already and you've got 1,000 skills in it. You can't just copy paste 1,000 skills into your, Copilot or ChatGPT or whatever and say, hey, pick the 10 best skills for this piece of content. It will really struggle with that. It
will return something. It might not be good though.
Well, and because it struggles with kind of this sort of AI problem, this needle in a haystack problem, where some of the best skills might be located right in the middle of that big context that you just gave it, and it will do a really poor job of finding that on a regular basis. So this is one example. This is how we used AIQ and the metadata. The information about the content as well as the job descriptions to generate a skill taxonomy. Another one is a project that we did with Microsoft to basically take some of their content from their most recent Ignite conference and analyze the session, the video itself, as well as the PowerPoint, and did some visual analysis on both of those to extract very similarly to what Jeff was showing you, kind of a metadata document, right? So you got the abstract and topics and keywords, learner fitness, and so on. Kind of the tone and style of this particular piece of content. But we had a larger requirement around it, which is, hey, we need this metadata. This is going to be good for discoverability, for helping learners or participants find the content later on, or even to inject it into their AI kind of subject matter expert conference tool to let people get answers to things to sessions they might have missed. But the other part was, hey, we want to use AIQ's technology to reliably find snippets and clips from these sessions that were particularly relevant to what they were talking about, right? So in this one, here's network level AI threat protection. Obviously, it's Microsoft, and they're going to talk a lot about AI. So so you've got a nice 5-minute, 18-second clip that goes from this point in the 1 hour long session to this point. And then, so this is actually used for the video production team, so they can quickly find, extract, grab that video itself, and then put it into a larger presentation that I'll show you real quick here. I think it would be
one more over.
Yeah, there we go.
There
This
you
one.
go.
So what we did was we generated a kind of a video recap. So this would be like a 5-10 minute video recap where it kind of takes screenshots and edits from those. I'm going to play it, but I'm not going to play it out loud. Where it'll take videos and screenshots of the content and also the presentation, like the actual session, to generate like a 10-minute kind of video recap or abstract summary or instructional short, whatever you might want to call it. And then, provide, here's the script, here's the talking points, here's the, what gets discussed and mentioned. Here's, the screenshot when they were doing a demo, and so on. So again, now you have in partnering with Synthesia here, being able to bring in those video clips on specific topics and demos, as well as a recap video that was generated through Synthesia, and being able to combine it all into one. So now you have a nice consolidated kind of bite-sized learning thing that lets the learner decide, oh yeah, this is great. Like I just need the 10-minute recap, or let me jump to the session video itself and find it on the actual website. So really, really helpful. And we were able to turn that around like during the actual session or during the actual conference itself.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of like kind of doing something you couldn't have done before. Like within hours of getting that source content, being able to create an interactive experience that leveraged clips, leveraged new synthetic video, and leveraged podcasts and the whole thing, really improved that experience of that. And I don't think there's any organization out there that wouldn't solve that same kind of problem of they have lots of really smart people that love to talk in hour-long large events in increments, and we record those, but sadly, as we all know, no one ever watches those hour-long videos. And this is all about kind of how do we make that more digestible, and a more engaging way without being a huge cost to do that. Like you mentioned, the timing of being able to do this was pretty spectacular of how fast we could turn this around. And I will call out, this is a human plus AI process. There were humans involved in that workflow, from reviewing the storyboards that it generated, the metadata, to compiling the whole package together at the end, from the bits and pieces that were automatically created in Synthesia. So it very much is a human plus AI kind of equation. But when you do that, you're able to, again, deliver more, better, and faster in those cases.
Yep. And then just to pivot over a little bit more, so you've got another concept where you've got a bunch of content and you need to tag it to associated or relevant, for reporting purposes, like very consistent set. So like in this example, you've got, brands and regions and audience and modality and all this stuff. So now you've got kind of like a nice and easy way to look at and view a AI analysis of like in justification for why it's these three hotel brands, what region it is, based on the fact that it mentioned Saigon Airport. It's probably over in Southeast Asia, what language it was in, the target audience, modalities. So there's a lot you can do once you have, and you don't have to provide the entire bit of content every single time, right? Like you can provide an abstract summary, the learning objectives, to figure out if, in fact, it's going to mention or impact hotel metrics, right? This is about revenue for hotel leaders. Well, you would imagine that RevPAR and RGI would be, highly discussed in there, right? So it gives you an opportunity to highlight and find ways to not just tag your content, but also even, find opportunities to improve that content when you would expect it to look like something, and in fact, it looks like something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
go ahead, Brett. Sorry.
I was going to show one more kind of use case that we've been thinking a lot about. Do you want to introduce this one or talk about this one?
Yeah, I want to kind of tease this. Like we want to show the future a little bit here. So one of the things we've challenged ourselves on is rethinking the workflow of how do we traditionally do work, and not just automating the workflow that we have today, but are there different ways to solve that? And one of the challenges we had was, can we start to generate content at the point of consumption? If we have the trust in the data sets, trust in the agents that are processing it, can we start to dynamically generate the content at the point of consumption at the individual level? And what Brett's about to show you here is a prototype of an agent we call the continuous learning agent that's set out to start to solve that problem and prove that we can start to scratch at it. So Brett, I'll let you walk through what's going on here.
Yeah. So, and just like you mentioned, right? So this is the idea here is for those, forever learners, the people that just, they love to take things into their own hands and don't necessarily want the strict structure of SCORM content or whatever it might look like. Being able to have something that's like, accessing, an AIQ knowledge base, right? With all the files and information that you need. And then have it generate some learning objectives. And notice that these are going to be learning objectives that are based on not just the content that's found in that knowledge base, but also the user themselves and the fact that they are, I think, a product manager at a random, organization, right? So, and then being able to kind of fine tune what that teaching experience is. Do you want it to be an encouraging one, direct, neutral, humorous? I'm going to be honest, the humorous one is just off the wall ridiculous, so I wouldn't necessarily pick that one. The style, do you want more visual, practical, theoretical examples, Socratic method? And then, you can also add some information in here, like, every time I start a new topic, do you want to do a little pre-test so the AI has a better understanding of what you already know? And then do you want to enable like, internet search so that you have the ability to go get new information when someone asks? So what this will look like is, here's your AI agent, here's the learning objectives that were put in here. You can say, go ahead and get started. And it'll create a little learning path. On this left side, it'll generate, some categories and topics based on TypeScript basics, the user themselves, as well as the learning objectives that you established. So you'll notice here, if you kind of expand this, you'll be able to see a product leader's view, right? So this wouldn't have happened if it was, an end user or like an individual contributor, maybe software engineer, right? Developer, yeah. Right? That's the word. So, what's, ambiguity. So I can start here at the top, or I can pick any one of these that sounds like something interesting or that I want to dive more into. So you'll notice, and
as it's doing this is based off of the trusted, vetted content from those knowledge bases that we talked about in AIQ before, that you've said, hey, this is what I want to do. But go ahead,
yep.
Brett.
Yeah, exactly. So in this example, it's going to give you like here's some basic information about the ambiguity tax. of untyped JavaScript and kind of the problems that TypeScript is meant to help you with. I have the quizzes disabled, but then I can say, hey, test my knowledge on this information. I can expand this. I can also have it create a podcast or simplify or deep dive. I can jump over to a different one and it would similarly kind of go down that route. And then there's kind of information in here for each one of these little topics that will help you revisit you as maybe an L&D admin, LMS admin, to see what kind of engagement you're getting on specific topics of interest to your users, to the learners, and then maybe look at making more formal content and so on. All right.
Yeah. So the idea here is that, this content is created at the point of consumption. The assessments can be there. You could set rules to validate it. It could generate articles. It could start to generate videos in the future, like all those different types of assets of how people might want to consume this content can be customized, but again, anchored off of what you have, the content that you there with the guardrails, controls, and the comfort that it's going to generate higher quality content because of those experiences that are there.
And this is just showing an example that you can go down this route and ask your own questions. It'll use the internet, different sources, and things like that too.
If you want, or you can let it not do
or
that.
You can turn that functionality off, right? Which I would imagine there would be a good use case for that too.
So perfect. Well, thank you, Brett. I think we're hitting right on time here. I'll go ahead and just pull back up the Q&A slide. Well, I don't know if we actually need a slide for Q&A or not, but why not? And let me pull up chat again. Any questions, comments anyone have for us? Again, 45 minutes is a whirlwind to get through a lot of this stuff that's here. As you can imagine, Brett and I could probably spend hours on any one of those topics that we hit through. But hopefully everyone found this useful, showed some practical examples of things where you're able to do this at scale, and happy to spend the next few minutes answering any questions if anyone has any.
Yeah, and the idea with those demos is not, this is all that can be done, but it's really just to get everyone's minds jogged into thinking about different ways they can think about using AI outside of something like just Copilot or just, making awesome, movie trailers. It sounds like there's a lot of use cases out there, and hopefully you guys can come away with this with some interesting ideas that you can work on implementing.
And actually, you guys, I saw, Brett, that you responded to Sanjay, but you responded to hosts and panelists, and so I wanted to make sure that he does hear your response.
Sorry, Sanjay.
Yeah, because he left that question. And it's basically that, yeah, you're absolutely right. And you can also manually edit the outputs directly in AIQ as well. So it's very, very useful.
Yep.
Does anybody have any more questions? Chat's open. The guys are here. We're listening.
Yeah, Sanjay, that was my fault. I sent it to Jeff and Juana, not you, which would have been more helpful to answering your question.
Yeah. Okay, well, if nobody has any more questions, then I just really want to thank Jeff and Brett. This was such a great discussion. Thank you for the demos. They're so useful. And thank you to everyone for joining us, for your time and your attention. We do ask that as soon as we end this session, you take a minute to fill out our survey. That feedback is important for us to continue to improve these sessions that we host for you guys. And basically, we hope you'll join us again for another one of our upcoming webinars. You can find all of them on our website at gpstrategies.com. And if you want to see anything else that's coming up, you can also follow us on social media. And we just want to wish everyone a wonderful and productive rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us.
This webinar was brought to you by GP Strategies. Together, we help organizations transform through their people. You can access more webinars or download additional resources by visiting the GP Strategies Resource Library. The link is on your screen and in the description.